Hey everyone, this is Nico signing in. I'm going to be continuing my second part of my review for Kung Fu Panda 3. If you have not yet seen my first part of this review, do check it out, please. Because in that part of the review, I focus on all the pluses, what I enjoyed from the film. And now in this film, even though it's all the negative stuff, all the minuses, I do recommend you you watch this just to see if maybe you've seen the film. Maybe you agree with some of the stuff I'm ranting about. All right, here we go. So Kung Fu Panda 3, all the negatives, all the minuses, and again in no particular order. All right, so let's start off with so in my first part I talked about some characters that they introduced. Let's see. So there's one panda character in particular who I perceive to be a Hodor panda. Now, for those of you who don't know who Hodor is, Hodor originates from the series, the series of A Song of Ice and Fire. It's a novel, and which has been put forth into a TV series called A Game of Thrones. So Hodor is this ginormous character in that TV series slash novel series, and he's a giant of a character who's very much brainless, but he's all brawn, and he's not just all brawn, but he's also ginormous. He's a giant, but at the same time he's very dumb, and all he says is Hodor, Hodor, Hodor. I mean, yeah, because I'm starting to read that book series, A Song of Ice and Fire. I'm not too far into the series, but I do know from the few moments I've seen, all he says is Hodor. That's it. Same as the TV series. Now the TV series, I'm caught up. I'm caught up to the latest season, and still Hodor just says Hodor, Hodor, Hodor. That's it. So same thing here. It's not. I mean, he doesn't this particular panda character. He doesn't just say his name. I mean, it's just he just says such few things. I mean, he is kind of funny, but I mean, I didn't enjoy him much. I don't know. I should have, because I definitely get the sense that it's kind of pop culture reference to Hodor. But he's this big, like, giant, kind of ugly, lovable panda, and all he does is he hugs. That's it. He just likes to hug. And there's a funny scene in the film where Po is, like, he winds up getting he winds up, like, falling down, either falling down or just, like, getting stuck up close, kind of like in a hugging position with another panda character, which is new. Her name, I forget her name, but she's like a ribbon dancer. And then so they're obviously in a position where they look like they're hugging, and then this Hodor panda, I forget his name again, so I'll call him the Hodor panda. This Hodor panda comes up behind and just hugs both of them, and he's like, let me get in on some of that. I thought it was kind of dirty, and I mean, it's not that I'm not a fan of dirty stuff. I actually like it, but I think they were trying too hard. And there was that scene, and then they had another scene right on top of that, which basically mimicked it, where Po was getting hugged by his two fathers, and same thing, Hodor Panda comes storming in out of nowhere into their house. He actually broke into the house. I want to call him a burglar, and he's like, let me get in on some of that, and he hugs them, all three of them. So, I mean, I guess I appreciate the notion of them, like, making pop culture references to Hodor from A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones, but and kind of like adding like dark adult humor to a child's movie. But with this, it's gonna be a minus on my list. I wasn't so keen on it. All right, so next up, okay, so this one, okay, I call this one in my notes at least, Everyday Hero. Too corny. So, and you're probably wondering, what's the everyday hero? I mean, so everyday hero is like the notion that everyone can be a hero. I have no issue with that. I actually like that. But I think in this film, they take it way too seriously, way too over the top. Again, I I used to play an MMORPG. I'm very much a fan of the everyday hero. Like, anyone can be someone, anybody can be somebody, anyone can be a hero. I do like that. But in the film, and this is a spoiler-free review, by the way. I'm trying to keep it that way. But in this film, Kung Fu Panda 3, they kind of take it way too out of proportion. Because there's this ability, and I'm not gonna name it. I'm not gonna say too much about it because it would be a spoiler. But there's an ability in this film, and Po is able to teach it to everyone, like everyone. And this ability, I understand, like in the whole like traditional like philosophy in the real world, because this ability is an actual thing. In Eastern Asia, Eastern Asian culture, like Buddhism, stuff like that. It's an actual thing. It exists. And they believe that it exists in everyone. Every living thing has it. I'm not going to say too much, but yes. So, Po is able to teach this to everyone, and what I didn't like about it was that at least in this universe, in the universe of Kung Fu Panda, Kung Fu Panda 1, Kung Fu Panda 2, and now Kung Fu Panda 3, we learn, in this third installment of the series, we learn that the pandas are special, they're very unique, because of this one thing. And Po is able to teach this to everyone in the end, not just his village that he just reunited with, but everyone. And I didn't like that. It takes so much away from the badassery. That's what I mean by everyday hero too corny. Again, I have no issue with anyone becoming a hero. I actually like it. I'm a staunch believer of it, but I think they took it way too out of proportion this time. All right, so next minus. So we have. So let's see. We're trying to stick to pandas. So yeah, okay. All pandas silly. This is what I wrote in my notes. All pandas silly, just more pose. Okay, so I do love how they kind of built up the tension in us as the audience as to like, hey, Po is not the only panda. Like, haven't you guys always wondered, like, from Kung Fu Panda 1 and throughout much of Kung Fu Panda 2, like, what's going on? Po is the only panda. I mean, that's not a bad thing. He's super cool, but still. And then I do like how they built up the tension, kept us wondering, and then at the end of Kung Fu Panda 2, we're like, we as the audience, they give us a very, very brief, like, millisecond, scene where we see Po's father. We're like, oh, Po's dad lives! Oh my god. And, so yeah, that was very epic, by the way. But now that we're here in the third installment of the series, Kung Fu Panda, they show us the secret, hidden Panda village, and I'll give them props. They did do their best to make all the pandas look very different and not all the same, but every single fucking panda was silly, comical. I didn't like that. I mean, we have Po, that's exactly what Po is. I mean, it's in his essence to be funny. He's so lighthearted, he makes you feel so good. Just like Hurley from the TV series Lost, for any of you Lost fans out there. The reason why every time they showed Hurley and they gave Hurley like a badass moment, I'd be like screaming, jumping up in the air, up and down. I don't care who's watching with me, I always did that. It's because only Hurley was the best at that. He was so lovable and huggable and comical at the same time. But here in Kung Fu Panda 3, every single fucking panda is comical. Everyone. I mean, you get to the point where you get sick of it. At least I did. I mean, I wish they gave us like a sage panda, like a badass like sage, like an elder who was very like staunch and very I don't know, very just like deeply rooted in like tradition and strictness. But no, everyone was silly. So it's just more pose. It's more pose. So I wish they didn't do that. At least give us, I mean, they did give us variety in terms of looks and, like, ages, even though there was only one old elder, which was an old lady, and I feel bad for her because she kept getting hit and falling down, and they tried to make it funny. I actually did think it was funny, but yeah, she was comical. So I wish they did more in terms of personality. All right, so next up on my minuses. So let's see. Okay, I guess all of. Okay, one more. Because the rest of my minuses are all tied into my pluses, most of them. So yeah, I'm gonna give you one more minus that isn't not tied into one of my pluses in my previous video. So now we get the concept of the Jade Zombie Fallen Masters. Okay, so as I mentioned in my... Sorry, I'm scratching myself. Okay, in my previous video, in the part 1 of this Kung Fu Panda 3 review, I mentioned the ultimate badass villain, Kai. Super awesome. And I briefly mentioned the fact that he's able to kind of revive his fallen foes, and he can control them as his minions. So he gets like this army of Jade Zombie Fallen Masters, and I think that's super awesome. But now that we're in the negative portion of my review, I think it was a very good concept, but it was super inconsistent. Very inconsistent. So you think that this badass villain is defeating... So, well, let me just backtrack first. So, at the beginning of the film, this badass villain is in the... I'm trying to think if this will be a spoiler or not. Okay, I won't say where he is. But this badass villain, he has fought for like 500 years, trying to defeat every master, every kung fu master, and all these kung fu masters, and he's able to defeat all these kung fu masters, and when he does so, he kind of drains their essence, their force, their life force, and he puts them into the form of a jade pendant, and he wears it on him. And I think I forgot to mention this in my part 1 review, but what I think is super badass about it is it's like he's essentially wearing the skulls of his enemies, but in the form of jade pendants on a chain on his waist. So yeah, Zombie Jade Fallen Master Army. So yes, he has this huge army of fallen masters that turn into jade, and they fight for him, and they're also his eyes on the battlefield, which is awesome. But they're also super inconsistent. They're fallen masters. They're fallen masters, and yet they fall. Yet they die easily. Not die, but they're taken out easily by Po. I mean, Po is a struggling teacher. He's struggling to teach kung fu. I mean, I'm sure he's a dragon warrior, but still, he's they build up this whole feeling that Po is not a master yet, even though he's a dragon warrior in this film, but he's still struggling, he's still weak, he's still insecure, unconfident, and yet, Po is able to knock these guys out, but not even Po, even villagers, mere villagers are able to take them out. I didn't like that. I mean, these are fallen masters, and yet they're able to be taken out. Even as zombies, they should be powerful, and yet they're able to be taken out by mere villagers. Alright, so now on to the rest of my minuses, which are tied into the pluses that I put in the part 1 of my review for this film, Kung Fu Panda 3. Alright, so first off, oh, actually, this one's not tied in. Let me do this one first. So, Master Shifu. For those of you who do not remember who Master Shifu is, Master Shifu from Kung Fu Panda 1, Kung Fu Panda 2, he is Po's original teacher. He's that very tiny, he's basically the Yoda, but serious Yoda, not funny Yoda in the Star Wars series. I mean, funny Yoda, Yoda, even though he has a lot of serious moments where he's wow, he's saying such insightful things. He's a sage, he's an elder, he's a Master Yoda, a Master Jedi. Jedi Master. Master Shifu is the Kung Fu Panda version of Yoda. So he's not comical, though. Not at all. He's very tiny. I don't know what animal he is. He's like... I want to say he's like a tarsier, just because of his giant eyes, his cute ears, his tiny body. But I could be wrong. He could be like a red panda. Though I think red pandas are like quite long in body. Body shape. Some kind of panda, I think he is, maybe. Maybe not. I'd like to say he's a tarsier. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, because I didn't look it up. But Master Shifu, what I did not like, and this is why this is showing up on my minuses, is because I have so much respect for Master Shifu and Master Oogway. They are, after all, Poe's teachers from Kung Fu Panda 1, Kung Fu Panda 2, especially, more so, it's Scarlet, especially Master Shifu. But Master Shifu is like, they make him out to be lower than Poe. I mean, I'm sure he's the Dragon Warrior, but you would think, even though Poe's the Dragon Warrior, he still has like a Master Shifu, but in this film, Master Shifu does not get any badass moments. None at all. Not that I remember. I don't think he gets any. He's super weak in this film. I did not appreciate that. I mean, in Kung Fu Panda 1 and 2, they showed him as really strong, really awesome for such a tiny thing. But in this film, he's beat up. He's essentially beat up, and he's defeated. And not just by this badass villain, Kai, but towards the end, and I'm not going to say much more than the fact that Poe, even though he's Dragon Warrior already, he still somehow gets a promotion beyond what Master Shifu ever could be. At least if this is going to be the final installment in the Kung Fu Panda series, Poe is made out to be heaps stronger, and not just stronger, but wiser, and more rankier, more high in rank than Master Shifu, and I didn't like that. I love Master Shifu. He didn't get any, like, shining moments in this film. I really feel bad. I'd have to say this is the biggest minus on my list for this film. Alright, moving on to the minuses that I have that are tied into the pluses from my Part 1 review. So, let's see. So I mentioned in my Part 1 review, one of the pluses was that Poe, Poe had a choice at the end. He had two choices to make at the end, toward the end of the film, and it was very awesome. And I said he got to choose between his, like, life's ambition of, like, Kung Fu, of transcending above all in Kung Fu, and then there's the other thing, which is his people, his family. And they did give you, they did try their best to show you that, wow, these are two very, very serious decisions to make. But Poe, like, they could have shown much more of an impact if they gave Poe kind of like a tug at his heartstrings moment where he'd be like, wow, gosh, so I have these two choices. Am I going to choose between, like, being the ultimate transcendent Kung Fu master, or am I going to choose my family, like my newly discovered real original father, birth father, and, like, my family and friends? They don't give you that. It's just like they present Poe. They present Poe with the two decisions. I mean, he's presented with the two decisions, and he makes his choice. That's it. He doesn't have, like, maybe I'm being too finicky here, but this is just me. This is just my spiel. I wish they did more. I mean, it was just seconds. They could have done a few more seconds more, showing you how much more of an impact that was. And all they had to do was show Poe, like, in a state of, like, conflict, inner conflict, in his mind. Like, gosh, ultimate Kung Fu master or family and friends? Which one? So, I wish they did more with that. Alright, so on to the next plus. We've got, Okay, so I mentioned the new badass hardcore villain named Kai, who's this ox creature, and one of the minuses is that they make him kind of comical. So he's like, I want to say he's almost half comical, and the other mostly half like badass, wicked. I seriously love the backstory of the villain Kai. I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but he's deeply connected to one of the prominent figures in the Kung Fu Panda universe, and yet I think they did very well in showing how he turned to the dark side. I mean, it was kind of like it was kind of weird how like he kind of like in a split second turned all of a sudden to not just evil but like primeval wicked villain guy who's dedicated to like fighting 500 years because of his thirst, his greed for power. I mean, they did a good job showing how, like, explaining how he turned bad, but they did it in a matter of seconds. I mean, it's a film, I understand. So I'm not going to add that element to my list of minuses. What I am adding is the fact that they make him comical. And, I mean, I don't mind a bit of humor, because I know they did that with the prior villain in Kung Fu Panda 2, which is the Crane. I think he was awesome. They gave him his moments of humor. But in this short film, Kung Fu Panda 3, I think they made him too comical. The villain Kai, the new villain Kai, they made him too comical. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. I guess I could mention he mentions his name and no one knows him, no one remembers him. Even at the Jade Palace or the Jade Hall, whatever it's called, like their library full of scrolls of knowledge, even Master Shifu is unable to find information on him, at least at first, and even the little tiny bit he does find is very, very tiny. But still, no one remembers him. So it's very comical. Like he tries to talk, and then people say, "What? Who are you?" Even so, I didn't like that. All right, next minus. Let's see. What is this? Could have done more with what? Okay, I already mentioned about like the two dads, how that was a plus, and I guess I kind of mentioned it already. They could have done more with that. It's just like so I guess I'll go over it again. So, just briefly, Po has two dads, his birth father, the panda, and then his adoptive father, the goose, and I wish they did more with that. I mean, because it's the 21st century, you know, I do appreciate the notion, so that's why it's a huge plus for me, and I'm gonna keep it as a plus, but they could have done more with it. They could have done more, like, not so much poke more jokes at it, but like, at least poke at the fact that Po has two fathers and be more bold about it. They could have done more with that. And I'm not saying like make them gay, make them romantically involved. I'm just saying, you know, shout out. He's got two fathers. You should be proud. So yeah, I wish they did more with that. All right. So also in this one, not enough. This will be my final minus. Not enough. Not enough of what I call death of hero scene. Like I said earlier, I mentioned this earlier in part 2, how Po has his badass moment where he toward the end of the battle in Kung Fu Panda 2, where Po is against the entire fleet of the Crane villain. And then he has this moment where we as the audience think he's kind of dead. That one really made me tear. I promise you I shed tears in that scene. But here in this film, Po does get a death of hero scene, but is very minuscule compared to the one in Kung Fu Panda 2. So yes, I wish they did more with that. To be honest with you guys, in this Kung Fu Panda 3 film, there were two moments where I really did kind of tear up. And the first moment was where they did the homage to the scene in which Poe's mom is fleeing from the crane, not the crane, sorry, I keep saying crane, he's a peacock, the peacock villain, and then she hides Poe to save his life, and then she rushes off in front of the army, the peacock's army, and distracts them, and then we're led to believe that she gets killed off screen. So that was the first moment in this film that made me, like, kind of tear up. And the second moment is where Poe basically dies. He basically dies. And I'm not going to tell you how he dies, but I will say he does it to himself. And that's amazing. I really like that. But, yeah, I think I really did not... I mean, I did kind of tear up for these two scenes that I just said right now, mentioned right now. And I'm not going to say how... Well, yeah, he does kind of do it to himself. He does kind of kill himself in this. He sort of kills himself in this film. But I do want to say in Kung Fu Panda 2, I seriously teared up, like to the point of shedding one tear at least, twice, and that was the scene where they first showed the flashback of Poe and his memory. Even though it was a baby, it was kind of odd, but it was still very touching, where his mom like saves his life, but she dies. I really teared up at that scene, and then I teared up at the scene where we are led to believe that he dies on the waterfront against the Peacock Emperor. So yeah, this concludes my my part 2 review for Kung Fu Panda 3. That's all the negatives. And even with all these negatives, let's see, if I had to give a scale out of 10, and this is a very honest review and an honest scale, I would say I would give this film 7.8. 7.8 out of 10. I still very much recommend you see this film because, okay, Kung Fu Panda 1, Kung Fu Panda 2 were amazing, and this one could have been amazing if they just did a little bit more, and I'm just being very finicky to be honest, but still, it's a 7.8 in my book. So do definitely see it if you love Poe, especially if you love Master Oogway, because Master Oogway, I'm going to be honest with you, he only appears once at the very beginning of the film, and at a second time at the very end of the film. He does appear very, very, very minutely in the middle, but I'm not going to count it because it's in a library, in a scroll. But if you're a fan of Master Oogway, do see this, do catch this film, Kung Fu Panda 3. Alright, so everyone, thank you so much for checking out this Kung Fu Panda 3 review, and I do hope you chime into my channel for my next videos. Take it easy, everyone. This is Nico, signing off.